Hello, you lovely humans, and welcome to another very special video. 2017 flew by for me. I don't know about the rest of you, but it definitely feels like time is getting faster. Some of you who asked last year may remember that I'm not too big on New Year's resolutions, so to speak, at least in the terms of the way that most people make them, as far as like, this year I'm not gonna eat any bread. This is the year I lose 200 pounds. I'm gonna make $1 million. These kinds of goals, they're like really big and usually externally focused, and I feel like they don't really address the reasons why we want to make those goals in the first place, which usually has to do with like self-worth or feelings of lack or any number of things that are much harder to address in a 1-year span of time. And because that deeper emotional why isn't addressed with New Year's resolutions, I feel like that's why more often than not they are doomed to their infamous failure. And so instead of specific goals or resolutions, I like my resolutions to be more along the lines of themes. Thoughtful themes for my year. Things that I see where I'm struggling or places where I know that I can improve. And those are the places where I like to bring the emotional focus and then just revisit them on, like a month-to-month basis, remind myself of what I'm working on, try to be aware of how they crop up in my everyday normal life and my relationships with other people, and try to keep track of whether or not I am actually improving there or if I'm just running myself in circles. So in 2017, I kind of set some of these goals, some of these themes for myself, and I succeeded at some of them. I failed in others. And to be perfectly fair with most of these, it's like a blend of success and failure that I try to learn from and then bring into the next year of continuing to try to improve. Okay, so here's my recap of 2017 resolutions, my successes and failures. And if you guys are willing to share, I would love to see in the comment section down below, you guys share a little bit about your resolutions for 2017, how they went. Was it a blinding success? Was it an abject failure? Was it some beautiful, complex human combination of the two? Let me know down below. So my first New Year's resolution in 2017 was my language and my swearing. My colorful use of swear words was a big part of my older videos. And to be honest, for most of my life, swearing and cussing has been an integral part of my expression of myself and the way I was feeling internally. I started swearing heavily when I was 9 years old, and that was in a response to bullying that my sister was going through. We had moved from Maine to North Carolina, and it's like the kids in North Carolina were just horrendous. They were so cruel to her. And I remember, she tried and I tried to stand up to these bullies with intelligence, but they're bullies and bullies don't respond to that. And so my sister and I adopted cussing at them and being extremely aggressive back towards them and kind of like outdoing them at their own game. And I don't know, luckily my mom was always very expressive with her swear words when she would yell at us, so we had quite a lot of inspiration to pull from as far as being cruel and using those types of derogatory, mean put-downs. And it actually proved to be a really, really effective way to shut down those bullies because they couldn't keep up. And I think that they noticed that their self-worth was suffering just as much or even more as my sister's self-worth and my self-worth from their attacks, and so they just kind of gave up. My swearing just got worse when I started working in kitchens. It was like all the swear words that I ever wanted to let loose. It was totally allowed and acceptable and just the way that people communicated in professional kitchens. But I was aware, and I did always notice that the more I swore, the more it took a personal toll on my ability to be positive and kind to myself. I don't feel that swear words are inherently negative. Certainly they can be used in positive ways, but more often than not they are associated with really negative communication and communication that's very judgmental of others, and thus I found that when I got into those communication patterns, it even exacerbated the negative judgment that I had about myself. But there was so much anger inside me, and I felt like swearing was the only way to let other people know how angry and hurt I was. And I know a lot of people watched my earlier videos and heard the swear words and heard that pain and that anger that was in me, and they really related to it. And I know that it really helped a lot of people to hear that and to be able to process those feelings with someone else, acknowledging that they were valid, because they are. But at some point throughout this year of doing a lot of processing about my mom's stuff, and kind of realizing that the root of my swearing was with her and the way that she talked to me as a child when I had misbehaved and I needed to be punished, which meant she had to like systematically and fundamentally break down my sense of self, and realizing that that was the root of my language pattern. And that perspective really gave me a fresh motivation for working on this communication pattern. For a long time, swearing felt like the most authentic thing to do because it was an authentic expression of that pain and frustration that lived inside me. But as I've been working on the root causes of that pain and frustration and realizing where it came from and realizing the implications of someone having spoken to me that way, and then getting so much feedback on my videos about, girl, I really feel you, but the swearing is just caustic, or oh my gosh, I'm learning so much from these videos, but I want to share them with my friends or my family, and they will not be able to handle the swearing. And over the last year or so, I've realized that my swearing and my language has genuinely impeded my ability to communicate with people who want to change themselves. And so I've had to sit back and reevaluate what is actually authentic. Because in my hierarchy of values, at the very top, right under take good care of myself, is help other people who are ready to help themselves to the best of my ability. And that is authentically one of my highest values. So if my behavior and my language was getting in the way of me fulfilling that value, that was actually inauthentic to me and what I want my life to mean on this planet. And so it's been a really interesting realization that in order to be authentic and in order to be in alignment with my integrity, which means to be in alignment with my values, it's prudent for me to change a way that I authentically communicate. And by authentically communicating, I've realized that swearing is really just a habit. There have been many times when I've been making a video and I'll say something and I'll drop an F-bomb. And then I'll stop and I'll think, you know, can I say that just without the F-bomb? And will it still hold weight? Will it still be impactful? And the answer has over and over again been yes. So over the last year, I've really gotten my swearing and my communication on point in my videos. It has reduced in, you know, my real life by quite a bit, but that's definitely something that I will be working on in 2018, is just getting the residual swearing out of my daily communication, because more and more I realize that words hold weight. And I actually do feel more content and more at peace with myself, and I've noticed that I am kinder to myself when I am speaking in a way that is purposefully kind. And while I certainly don't think that swearing is bad or that everybody has to stop swearing, and I'm not offended by it in any way, but it's a big part of how we communicate, and communication is a primary way that we're interacting with other people. And the importance of being able to communicate with other people, especially people with whom I agree, without purposefully triggering them, with being like respectful, so that I will be received in as positive a way as possible. And so the message that I'm trying to get across will be received in a positive and proactive way. In a big way, I'm responsible for how I'm received, and accepting that responsibility instead of getting angry at other people for not hearing what I'm saying with triggering language, that's a responsibility that I feel like I'm ready to take on. And that's a responsibility that I feel like is going to be so important in the coming years as humans people in the United States, around the world, work on our differences and being able to function despite our profound differences. Because the division, the shouting at each other, the language isn't working. And I think I'm starting to get off topic, so I'm gonna end it here. Swearing less has felt really good, and I count it as a success for 2017. Yikes, that was a really long one. So the next resolution theme that I took into 2017 was working on listening to my body more. My lifelong journey with food and diets has been so dogmatic and so tied up in stuff that didn't really even have anything to do with food or even the shape of my body. It was so much about self-worth and self-esteem and feeling like I was just worth nothing. And it resulted in my mind and my body getting really confused about food. When do I eat? How much do I eat? When do I stop eating? So many of the cues that I felt about eating weren't coming from my physical body, from my physiology. It wasn't an expression of the needs that I had, it was an expression of what I thought I should do, based almost exclusively on external advice from others. And so it's been about 4 years since I have dealt with any significant eating disorder type behavior, as far as like behavioral manifestations of eating disorders that were outside of my control. And a lot of me being able to get those under control was coming to terms with my body's wants and needs. But for so long, I feel like I haven't necessarily been able to trust my body. My appetite has been totally whacked for years. There were times when I had absolutely no appetite. There were times when my appetite was voracious and I literally couldn't get enough food. And so more and more, I've been listening and honoring those cues, regardless of the external manifestations of those cues, i.e. like a little bit of weight gain or really slow weight loss. Been trying to be a lot more accepting of that process, and the first 3 or so years of eating disorder recovery was so much focused around making sure I got enough to eat, because for so long I had restricted myself, told myself, nope, body, your appetite, your needs are not valid. I'm gonna override this so that I can get you into the shape that I want. So over the last year or so, I've really come to a place where I'm totally content with my body. Like, I've achieved my weight loss goals. It's just, we're good, you know. I've done the body updates, we've talked about it. But this year I've been listening to my body, and to be perfectly honest, I have been surprised by my body asking for less food. Some days, sometimes she still wants tons. You know, like I've said, still eating like 2,200 plus calories a day, still getting plenty of energy and nutrients to keep myself going and thriving and healthy. But I have been surprised that the amount of food that I want during meals has gone down. I found myself wanting like small snacks in between meals every now and then. And I've also found that there are times when my body wants to go very long periods of time between meals where I don't feel hungry, where I don't feel an energetic drop. I don't feel any blood sugar swings that were so characteristic of my life over the last 10 to 12 years. Longer than that. 15, 16 years of crazy blood sugar swings. At the same time, even though my body has kind of gotten used to those patterns of, interesting, I don't want as much. There are other times when that flips and then I'm hungry and I want to eat like 6 times a day, or I want to have a really big meal and I want to go to bed full. And so also trying to stay non-dogmatic about that, as far as, sure, you can eat as much as you want to right now. Listen to those body cues and I think it'll be okay. And so far, it's been okay. And so again, I want to kind of reiterate for people who are perhaps earlier in their eating disorder recovery that this is not something that I think I would have been capable of doing 2 or 3 years ago when I was first starting to really recover. Certainly, beginning to learn how to listen to my body was so important as far as appetite cues, like I want to eat a lot right now, or I want to eat a lot but then I get super full and uncomfortable, so I'm like, okay, maybe I won't finish this meal because I'm already full and uncomfortable. But back a few years ago, I definitely needed more purposeful structure to make sure that I consistently got enough. It was too easy for those voices in my head to slip in and say, hey Lily, you don't need to eat dinner, or oh, you know, you weren't really hungry yesterday, so maybe you can not be hungry today too. And then tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll be even smaller than you are today. I think a couple of years ago, I would have been a lot more vulnerable to those voices. As of now, after lots of practice and persistence, and after my body being consistently nourished for over 4 years, I do feel capable of making the distinction between what my body wants, what my eating disorder wants, and the voice of that eating disorder becomes softer and softer with every month. So listening to my appetite and to my body and respecting those cues completely has been a really beautiful part of my 2017. All right, so we got 2 solid successes. Let's jump into some failures, shall we? So this year I really tried to up my YouTube game. You know, I got the new camera and the lighting and tried to improve on the quality of my videos and being a lot more attentive about how to put good videos together and what that takes, and being a little bit more directorial. And in taking on this task, it required a lot more of doing like research about what is successful on YouTube and who is successful on YouTube. And in doing that research, it has brought up so much disappointment and shame and the gnawing need for perfectionism that I thought I had overcome. And all of those feelings were just the results of me comparing myself to others. Dealing with my perfectionism tendencies and accepting myself as perfectly adequate has definitely been one of my New Year resolution themes for several years, and it was something that I felt like I was doing really good at. But then over the last year, and it has mostly been triggered by the YouTube stuff, you know, my stomach is just tight in this knot of I am not enough. I am not perfect enough. I am not good looking enough. I'm not put together enough. I'm not organized enough. My home isn't pretty enough. And, you know, the list just goes on and on and on and on. You know, trying to up my YouTube game has been like a hellish exploration, and I am not enough. And it's been hard, but I'm so grateful that I have the emotional toolkit necessary to be able to feel these feelings and identify them and sit with them and realize that you're right, I'm never going to be enough by what standard? By my own standard, by other people's standards, by society's standard. You're absolutely right. I don't fit into that. And, you know, I don't want to, because being enough and being perfect is not where happiness or contentment is. Those are found in embracing your imperfections and being okay with coming short and accepting that coming up short pretty much every single day of your life is just part of being a real human. And since I'm making this video and I have you guys here, please remember that real humans are not on social media. Social media is almost a complete farce. It's a fabrication. It's a facade where you only see people's best angles. You only see the highlight reel of their life. Even me, like, I try to be honest, I try to be open with you guys, I try to bring a significant amount of authenticity to this channel, but even I get all of these comments about like, oh my god, Lily, your skin is perfect. And I'm sitting here right now, and I get that on this video, at this angle, from this distance from the lens, it might look like I have perfect skin, but I don't. And you should not compare your skin to what my skin looks like in this video. Just like I shouldn't have wasted half of 2017 with my stomach in knots of I am not enough because I was comparing my skin to other people's YouTube videos too. Certainly there are people on this planet with lovely skin. I'm not one of them. I've never been one of them. I'm not sure if I will ever be one of them. And if I'm going to live a life that's not miserable and wasted in constant striving for something that's not possible, I'm gonna have to accept that. So the perfectionism and comparison and allowing those feelings to stir up my feelings about my own worth has definitely been a failure for me in 2017. I'm certainly glad that I've caught it, and like I said, I'm glad that I've developed that emotional toolkit to be able to deal with these feelings. Again, big shout out to Brene Brown and her work. she's been instrumental in supplying me with the tools to deal with this kind of stuff. And that is just life. Not all resolutions can be completed in a year. Maybe I should do decade resolutions. Alright, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my recap, my review of my 2017 resolutions. I feel like this is such an important thing to do with personal growth, is to just have these markers. You know, the new year is a great time to do it. The new year and my birthday are really close together, so I kind of just tie it all together and just do a review of how I'm doing, where I am, what I do want to think about and work on in myself over the next year, without putting too much insane pressure on myself to get everything done perfectly, because, you know, as I've reflected on this year, there are successes, there are failures. I do my best to learn from those failures and to not wallow in them and not feel ashamed of them. Though certainly it would just be nicer if I were perfect already. And again, if you guys are willing to share, I would love to hear about how your year went and how your resolutions went this year, where you did really well, where you maybe slipped up a little bit and could have done better and maybe can do better in the future. And as always, until next time, make better choices for yourself. No one's gonna do it for you, and take really, really good care. I'll see you all very soon. Bye. Hello? Oh my fucking god. My car doesn't have an extended warranty, you fucktards. Stop calling me. Yep, swearing's going really well.